The Essential Education projector range from Hitachi sponsors ICT programs.
In this programme, we explore how two schools are trying to get best value for money from their ICT, hardware and software budgets. At Waldegrave School for Girls in Twickenham, their ICT spending plan is largely based on money from generally available state funding. At Greenswood College in Essex, they have raised substantial extra funding for ICT from external sources and from their specialist college status. Our guides will be Jenny Michelle, Deputy Head at Waldegrave School, and Mike O'Sullivan, Vice Principal at Greenswood College.
So we're now moving up to the corridor, which is mainly maths and English. We're trying to fit things into rooms that don't have enough space, which is one of our overriding problems.
So the school got technology college status in 1995, and that means that we get additional funding over and above our standards fund and our recurring annual grant to the tune of about £125,000 a year. That was really when the whole move to ICT started.
A person is now measured by the number of chips they carry in their watch, in their PDA, in their phones, in their wallet. It's part and parcel of 21st century life.
Network PCs, digital brain,
an interactive whiteboard,
wireless network,
wireless laptops,
internet,
Hardware,
software.
The problem with ICT spending is that it's insatiable. The budget literally has to be trimmed down to what we can afford. But if I had the money, I could spend literally thousands of pounds on software, hardware, wireless networks and so on.
when we look at the IT budget as a whole, I suppose you could say the biggest percentage is actually spent on hardware, both new hardware, replacement. Sometimes we might just be buying monitors, sometimes we might be buying the whole unit.
The biggest cost by far is the cost of each of the units of the computers, which account for around about 50% of the spending.
A lot of the software we've managed in recent years to buy it through the e-learning credits, so we haven't had to use our school ICT budget or the standards fund for that.
How I've made the decisions and what we've purchased is partly guided by the amount of money we have available, although I know I can make a plea for buying something bigger. I feel if I'm going to go and ask for extra money, I have to be absolutely 100% sure that I definitely want to spend it on that thing. And it's quite hard to make a decision on something that's very, very expensive. So I've tended to buy a lot of cheaper, smaller pieces of software. So we have, 10, 15 applications that we use, and none of them cost more than £100 or so. And between those, we seem to find that we can actually do most of the things we need to do.
Now what's happening in this class? We can just want to have a quick look in here. We've got. Are you doing a presentation, Emma?
No, I'm just.
You're helping Mr. Drew, are you? Yeah. This is a history class. Mr. Drew is one of our lead teachers on ICT. This is year 11. I think they're probably doing revision on one of their units, is the history of medicine. But you can see there he's been using the interactive whiteboard with for and against arguments for better doctors and medicines.
Okay, so this is an area where we have access to the internet, and this is a French lesson going on here, and over here we have Mr. Cami. Mr. Cami is Director of Key Stage 4. And students are using our online curriculum, which is housed by a company called Digital Brain. And what they're doing here is basically a group of fun exercises on vocabulary, some aspects of grammar, and hopefully this will have gains in their learning.
This is a Year 11 French revision lesson, and the students are accessing various websites where they can do past papers, they can do vocabulary exercises and access different GCSE topic areas. I also upload any sort of PowerPoint presentations that I do in class. I
do go to the Bet Show when I can. I didn't go this year, but I went last year, and I read articles and I talk to people in other schools. We don't actually have a lot of advice within the borough. I've never actually taken any advice from the borough on what to buy, so it's always been really working at a lower level and sort of trying out things.
One of the other things that we saw at the BET show this year is this little gadget, which obviously is much lighter than a laptop and much cheaper. And there is a wireless version, so we're having someone in next week to demonstrate this, because we think that for some subjects, perhaps English when they're just drafting things, or perhaps where they just want to do some research on the internet, this might be a quite a cheap solution. It may not be. We're going to check it out. So that's something that we're currently investigating. I think a lot of people would think perhaps they're only applicable for primary schools, but we're quite interested in exploring this issue.
A successful ICT application is one, in my view, that not only saves time but primarily enhances the experience. If the user is enjoying using the application, then chances are they will also benefit in some way through their learning.
There are so many people trying to make money out of education. I think the word's gone round that schools have money, or that money's been made available, and every Tom, Dick and Harry that can make a piece of software is trying to sell it to us. And we have tons of flyers and communications coming through by email, by any route they think they can find. They're bombarding us, and it's very, very difficult to make sensible choices.
The cost is not necessarily proportionate to the outcome. A piece of software costing £20 or £30 might be just as good as something costing £200 or £300. So we just have to look at every case individually, and if we make a mistake, hopefully not make it again.
We really ought to be investing far more than we are on replacing our equipment and keeping it up to the sort of specification that increasingly our pupils are used to at home.
Some of the larger companies that currently we are using their system on our curriculum network, we have had a lot of hiccups. We've been to Bector because Bector has approved them, and obviously if Bector has approved them, then really they need to be following up as well, we feel.
When we go to select a new system, we usually use corporate companies to buy things off of, because we found that quite a lot of the companies that are fixed on the educational market aren't actually offering that much of a good deal, really, whereas corporate companies are a lot more competitive, so we tend to use them, and they usually give us an educational discount as well.
I think now the problem is not so much buying new kit or even the level of skills of our teachers. The teachers are now very keen to use it, but they can be very quickly put off using it if it's not working effectively in the lesson.
What we just try and prefer to do is look at the systems that we've got, try and identify who's going to be using them and when, and then try and upgrade proactively so there never is a problem in the first place. So it's kind of seamless to the teachers. The systems just keep on working and working and working. For instance, for this year's budget, what I've done is I've identified a problem with our wireless network that needs upgrading. There was a company who put that in. Now that costs quite a lot of money, but I've recently been on some training for the wireless courses, and I've actually designed a new wireless network for the college.
There are lots of benefits of having in-house expertise. Not only can you carry the vision with those types of people so they know the direction that the school is going in, but they also have a vested interest in getting it right as well. So although there may be a cost in terms of their salary, in terms of the payback in terms of their input and expertise, I think that outweighs it.
We like to keep most of our work in-house to try and save money and have the skilled people here. And also that's quite good for the turnaround on fixing faults, rather than having to go through a help desk and get solutions. Where we do most of our work in-house, we get a lot faster turnaround on the jobs that we do.
The whiteboards and the projectors have given teachers access to resources that they would not otherwise have in the classroom.
Well, we've got quite a lot of interactive whiteboards in the school now. I think we've got about 25 fully installed. Our first one we probably had about 5 years ago as an experiment, and we have looked to install them initially into departments where we thought they would get most use.
They can show video, they can go to websites, they can use all of the information that we keep on our curriculum network is available to them. So it has just opened up the classroom.
Okay, so now we're going to go into a maths lesson. These are Year 7 girls with our head of maths, Mrs. Cassells. She's using the interactive whiteboard to introduce the topic. So we'll go in and see what they're up to. We have got some teachers who are probably some of our lead teachers in using interactive whiteboard for a variety of uses and involving the children.
On the interactive whiteboard, I had a product which we found at the Bet Show a couple of years ago. My colleague thought it looked very interesting, and then the flyer came to school, and so we bought that.
2011 comes out.
It's colourful, it's big, it's bold. I know you might laugh, but maths is thoroughly enjoyable and fun if some of the tedium can be taken out of it.
Using an interactive whiteboard has very definitely improved teaching and learning in my own classroom. You saw me use a program which involved animations, and it's much easier to demonstrate those animations and talk pupils through those animations, or better still get the pupils to talk you through the animation as a way of explaining things, than to try and use textbooks or diagrams or even video. With an animation which you can stop-start, have on the whole board, bring the pupils up to the front, get them to talk it through with you, get them to explain what happens, it makes that a lot easier. It often reduces the amount of time that you have to spend teaching that content as well, which is very useful.
We also have a lab of 30 laptop computers, which we wheel from one classroom to the next, and we use that as and when we need them.
Sometimes there is a bit of money that we find at the end of the year, and part of the laptops that we've currently put in place were funded from some carryover money. We've purchased this system of the wireless laptops with a trolley where they all go for recharging. There's 30 in the trolley, and at the end of each lesson they have to go back for recharging. But you'll see it's quite organised. The girls seem to, take to it like ducks to water quite intuitively. We think they're quite good value for money, the laptops. We haven't done a proper evaluation. I think once they've been running maybe for 6 months, we'll take a sample of staff and do a proper evaluation, and also ask some children what they think about them.
This is Mrs Sugden, who is in charge of our integrated learning suite. This is a group of Year 7 students who are working their way through a literacy programme.
They've gone from their literacy, they're going to go into their numeracy now, they're going to do maths concepts and skills, which is looking at identifying their weak and strong areas.
It's working at your own pace, and at the end of it they'll do a test, and the test will then show if there's been any gains. This was funded from our normal annual grant, and we renew it every 3 or 4 years, and the software licence is renewable annually. But the benefits of this system are that the gains that some of our lower ability students make are very, very rapid. So some of the students who come in here with really low reading scores are accelerated very, very rapidly, and normally in terms of half a year's reading age per term. So it's a really rapid growth in their reading and their literacy skills.
Will we have as many teachers in the future? Will we have more learning facilitators? Will we need the number of first-class teachers, or will we need an increasing number of education support staff, learning mentors, learning facilitators? So I think in that prioritisation, it's first of all about the philosophy.
Well, I think computers should be seen like biros or pens or books. They ought to be seen as an entitlement to an education that all pupils, particularly in a state comprehensive school like ours, should expect.
We're now developing the concept of thin client. We're working with some major corporate companies to perhaps be one of the first schools around the world to put thin clients across the whole network. We are seeking to have that data centred in Docklands, in New York. We don't care where it's data centred, but everything will be run over the web. We will therefore reduce the cost of the actual stations. We won't need the processing power, but we'll increase the numbers, and fundamentally we will deliver the personalised learning agenda set off by Charles Clarke and David Miliband, and we will be able to deliver that to our students, building their personal responsibility, building their self-reliance, building their capacity to learn for the future.
Essential education projectors from Hitachi sponsor ICT programs.